Hey everyone, welcome to another weekly community call. My name is Larry Bailey, and today's topic is all about the Encompass Desktop through 2024 and beyond. We're going to talk about a bunch of things that I think people are really wondering about, especially as it relates to Encompass Web coming on the market. Of course, everybody is, jonesing for that 24.2 update to the test environment this weekend. I know I am, I'm sure you are too. And most importantly, we want to talk about what does that mean? What does that look like for the rest of this year for desktop? What does that look like for 2025 and beyond? And so that's what we're here to talk about. On the chat, if you are using that, go ahead and post any questions that you have. Luba's like, new mic? Yeah, it's a new mic. It's a new camera. I've got two lights over here and my head's not shiny, so it's all good. It's all good. Well, we are doing a lot of updates to the admins mastering Encompass. We're shooting new videos starting next week. So a couple things on that while it's on my mind. There is no like start time, end time to the admins mastering Encompass. It's an ongoing course. Every month we cycle up to the top of the agenda and we do these live meetings Tuesdays and Thursdays from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. And then you have a chance to watch the recordings. There's open hours Monday and Friday. I did throw a poll in because what's been apparent to me is that some companies still don't really have the budget yet, or maybe even believe totally that you really should have access to ongoing training. I certainly do. So I put a poll in the community. I'm thinking that the cost, if I just give like a private group access to all the admin videos that I'm doing, where I explain every single setting, what it's for, how you use it, that kind of a thing in context, best practices, all that stuff. And then every time we do a major update, those recordings get updated. So you're always working with fresh information, which is of course important. But I'm thinking that's $99 a month. Please do me a favor, answer the poll. It's in the community, search for it. That way, if your business doesn't really want to sponsor that for you, at least it's affordable where you can afford it on your own. $200 a month is a little bit pricey, but you know, it has all those live meetings. So in any event, let's talk about desktop, Encompass Desktop. It's 20 years old. Can you imagine? I actually happened to run into a guy who says he was there with Sig Anderman in the beginning. If you ever have had a chance to see Sig tell a story, dude is awesome. And he tells a story about he and his partner literally dreamt up Encompass on the back of a napkin, kind of a thing. And you'll get chuckles out of the audience when he tells that story because some people feel that's how it was designed, on the back of a napkin. I want everybody to remember this was designed in 2004 off the back of Genesis 2000. You can still find Genesis 2000 in the code. So Candace asked, what was the name before Encompass? There really wasn't anything, but Genesis 2000 preceded. It was literally, there were like 8 floppy disks. I wish I still had those suckers and could find like a Windows 3 machine or something to run Genesis 2000. So where this is going is, with Encompass Web coming out, and I've done a few different shoots on and explainer videos on what is Encompass Web. I'm putting out another one if you're interested. That'll be dropping soon, where I go through and really explain how Encompass Web is changing with card-based views and all kinds of automation that are just not possible in desktop natively. So a couple things about desktop that I want to kind of clear the air on. Now, again, I'm not an official ICE mortgage technology spokesperson. I am on the partner advisory board under 2 separate companies with them. We are going out to meet with ICE. We're actually going to be on the New York Stock Exchange floor for closing on Monday, I think it's the 12th, which is really cool, up in Manhattan. And so I've gotten to know the ICE members as well, or sometimes even better than I knew the Ellie Mae members. And the one thing that's been really clear is that desktop's not going away, gang. I think there's some misunderstandings out there, and I wanted to really clear the air. There is no absolute deadline that you have to go to the web. It's not real. Now, there is a major company that I heard through the grapevine that recently launched on Encompass Web exclusively, really large company, Haven't seen any official announcements, probably because it just happened, so they're waiting to see how it goes. But the idea that you can use Encompass Web for your business very soon entirely is real. And we're going to see a taste of that in the 24.2 release. We're going to see more of a taste of that in 24.3 later this year. And then, as I've been saying all along, come 2025, you're going to have to answer to your business as to why they're not leveraging Encompass Web more. But that doesn't mean desktop's going away. And so if you get any birds chirping in your ear about you got to move to the web, just ignore them. It's not true. Now, you may want to move to the web for all the reasons that I point out especially, but that doesn't mean you have to. And so there's things that are holding us back. Tell me if anybody, so show of hands on the community, if anybody's got these concerns. You've got significantly customized input forms that are down to the pixel and where you're separating things out, right? Show of hands, who's got those? Like everybody. And so moving that stuff into a responsive environment is a challenge. Now, I will say this, I'm working with a CTP lender that, and when I say they customize their Encompass, like I wish I could share this with everybody on the community because it's insanely awesome and it's insanely complicated. And there's 5,000 custom fields, no exaggeration, 5,000. And how do I know that? Because when the custom fields were created and the custom field calcs were created, they did not use field modifiers. So when the field calcs go and all the other fields are blank, those fields are just erroring out. You can spy that in the JIT-log. Yeah, Sarah. So yeah. Anyway, my point is we're taking one of those forms, and I said to the management, I said, if we can get this one input form and I can show them how to break it down into card view and we can make it work, that's the template for their company. So so that's the part I'm really putting on you, is when you look at Encompass Desktop, I want you to understand that it's still going to be around, but I also want you to start looking at your input forms kind of like from a code base, from where, like, if you didn't build them especially, like, why are we having this here? Is this even being used? Hopefully everybody knows that on the homepage of Encompass, in the lower right-hand corner, you can use that native tile to see all of the custom input forms and how many people are actually going and who are the people, if you click into it, who are the people that are actually going there. And so you can really figure out which custom input forms you really care about. Pick the one that actually works for you the most, like people who use it the most, and start to look at how can you break that up. I'm going to encourage you to go back and look at the videos I've done for card view. Keep your ears open for the one that we're dropping this week, because again, I'm a huge fan of card view, and the way I've done it and used it works really well. I've shown it to 4 different sales teams who are all Simple Nexus, not all, 3 out of 4 are using Simple Nexus in their sales team. And they all said the same thing. They all said, why aren't we using this now? Meaning Encompass Web for sales. And they're okay using Consumer Connect, totally fine, because they're not really leveraging Simple Nexus for what they're paying, which again is different. Everybody's different. Simple Nexus's solution works wonders. They have a huge market share. They're doing phenomenal stuff. It's just not for everybody. And mostly because that's some old legacy information and experiences. So speaking of legacy, that's one of the reasons why desktop has to stay around. So think about this. How many of your solutions that you're using, plugins especially, are SDK based, meaning they're not 100% API? Probably a lot of them, especially if you're getting them from certain companies. Also think about any type of computers that are running specific kinds of software that are local in your environment that are doing work. A lot of these platforms are still using SDK because there's no cost for that internally. The SDK license is as a client, you can build whatever you want, and you don't have to go out to ICE to get special permission with the SDK. You can just kind of build your own stuff. If it breaks, it's your fault. They'll let you know because they can tell from the DLLs. But my point for this is the desktop will continue to be around because we've got SDK legacy stuff. And we've also got third-party software that's been built for companies that's interacting with core systems. So again, when you look at what you're doing as a company, go into your input form builder. Who's done this recently? Hopefully everybody. But go into your input form builder and go to manage customizations and go to your plugins tab and see what's there. And you should be able to tell exactly what all those DLLs are doing and who put them there and why they're there. Luba, I hope we don't mind me calling you out, but a couple of weeks ago I did a whole thing about using the system audit trail to find logins, and Luba found a service that was running every day. Keep me honest here, Luba, but every day it was hitting your system 5 times, I think, and it was a service that had been discontinued. Now it wasn't like a plugin, but it was still a maintenance issue that you need to take care of. And so, so it's important to really go through and understand what's in your system, not only because you want to know, but then also for preparedness. There is a process. If you are going to start enjoying what you can do on the web, you can build a plugin or buy a plugin that goes on the web. You could do that. You can insert it there, it goes in, but it's written off JavaScript, which is very different from the plugins you're using on desktop. So functionality is different, code base is different, what it can do is a little bit different. So again, that's that part. One of the last things I talk about in Encompass Desktop and why it will be here for probably a very long time, honestly, is because we all have core functionality that people will continue to do on desktop because that's where it's done best. And where if you take the balance, right? If you take the balance of web, it's very fast, snappy, new, great UI, you might have situations where you're like, you know what? I don't need fast, snappy, great UI for this work. I'm going to keep this team over just doing whatever they need to on desktop because they use like 2 or 3 input forms or 2 or 3 custom tools, whatever, or 2 or 3 automations that just don't make sense to move to the web because they can live in desktop. I guarantee you're going to find that, guarantee. And so, when you look at what's going on with desktop, what you're going to find happen, and you can kind of start to see it now with 24.2's release. We see huge push forwards in the technology with web, and we see some incremental updates with desktop. Some of the neat things in desktop that are being done because they're being done in web also are things like introducing MFI, updating enhanced conditions, even something as simple as auto retrieval, provided you're using the new doc viewer. So these are things that you're going to find valuable in desktop that are being developed in a way that, again, you can use in web. So quick poll for everybody here who's on. Thanks for coming today. What's the one thing that you think you won't be able to live without if you had to leave desktop? Like pick one thing, everybody. Like what's the one thing that comes to mind that you're like, no way, I can only do this in desktop. Larry, I'm not in desktop. What are you talking about, Sean? So, when I look at this, I think about the parts of desktop that I would say I can't really do without. For me, it's input form builder. And it's kind of like how I started. And Amy and I are thinking the same thing. Amy's like custom input forms. And I'm telling you, if you're saying custom input forms, here, let me just show you real quick on screen. I know this is like a desktop conversation, so I'm being very cautious not to make this all about the web. But when we go through, let's see if I can figure this out. Here, we'll go with this example, and we'll bring this over here. So if you're listening to podcasts, by the way, thank you very much. If you want to see the full video experience, either get over to our YouTube channel, please subscribe. You'll find that using Mastering Encompass as the handle. And or you can watch it on Mortgage.community. And so let me go ahead and share a screen here. And this, if you're not seeing this on screen, it's probably not going to make a lot of sense. But I'll go ahead and log in real quick because I do want to share with you what I did as a kind of like a preview for what's going to be coming out on the video. And this is the card view piece. So that Amy says, I know I can customize them on the web, but it's not the same. The card view is very different. It doesn't give me a one-shot glance of info. I have to go into different cards. And yes, to an extent, right? And so when we look at your input forms, you have categories of sections on your input forms. I know you say you're looking at everything at a glance, and it's just not true. Your eyes are bouncing from place to place. Now you might say, okay, Larry, that's kind of the point. They are bouncing from place to place. I don't want to have to go here to look at this information and then decide where do I go next to look at that information. To which I would say, I would challenge you to prove me wrong that that's not more efficient. Because I know if I need to go to a certain place, I don't have to worry about where it is on the form. As an administrator, I don't have to worry about data overlap. If a business wants to add in 25 more fields on the qualification input form, who cares? Great, we'll do it. It's not a big deal. So I don't know. I took a long time to really settle into this idea. But I do want to make sure that you understand when you are looking at input form builder, right? And when we go to the thing I miss, right? We got on this topic because of the things that I think I would miss. It's all about making sure that if we go into looking at an input form that's built on a form layout, which is what this is going to come up as, the idea is responsiveness. And that means that we've got things that are, like I'll use this category box, right? And so we've got 12 columns within this layout, blah, blah, blah. You can get in, if you want to find out more about how to build input form builder, you can check it out or go to the Web Essentials course, whatever you want to do. But this is the one thing that's going to be the toughest. And so when we think about nostalgia for desktop, you're going to have 5 years from now, you're going to have people getting requirements from the business really missing the idea of being able to put these things down pixel by pixel. But the better part is when I go into a file and I'm going to do work in my pipeline, I can do a hell of a lot more, a hell of a lot quicker in this environment because I've got my eyes focused. And I'll tell you this, when you demo other LOSs that are taking market share from Encompass, guess what they look like? They look like this. And so, Amy, for you do TPO. I just met with another TPO client, pretty big client, and I asked them, they do a lot of wholesale. I asked them, what do their brokers use mostly? They said Arrive. Arrive is web. Arrive is this. And somehow the job gets done. When you look at other platforms, same thing. You've got this idea of input forms that are based on this kind of format, and you can flip through them. So in any event, it's one of the things I'll miss most. Amy takes enjoyment out of lining pixels up one by one and not getting angry when your mouse accidentally slips and you select more than one and accidentally delete a whole bunch of controls and there's no back button. Amy loves that part, apparently. Luba says audit tool from Ignite. And so the great thing is, Luba, over in again, so those are the things you're going to miss, which I think is great. And so you would want to work with Ignite to say, hey, Ignite, when are you going to get that stuff over in web? And I think that's really important for everybody to really focus in on is if you've got your partners that you're working with, now's the time to start talking with them what their plan is. And really start looking at your own workflow for what you want to do. My encouragement for you is start remembering everybody's gripe about Encompass Desktop. Like, do something about that. And what we do, right, what have we done up to now? We've done automation. Companies have come out of nowhere. In 2014, you had just a couple of companies that were doing plugins. And 10 years later, it's a huge business that's taking money out of your company's pocket. I know. because I worked at one. That's one of those companies. And the idea was to get the plugins so deep into your workflow that you can't unwind them. It's insidious almost. Almost. It's also a great business platform, right? Kind of like iPhone. We get you sucked into the ecosystem. Can you get out? No. And so I look at this as an opportunity with desktop is to start reevaluating what it is that you're doing with your company. Where are you spending your money? Who's actually using the thing that you think is using it in the way that you think they're using it? So in English, walk around, like I've said before, walk around your team and how they're using desktop and really evaluate what is it that you're going to miss. Because that is going to guide you through the rest of this year, certainly as we get 24.2 in August, 24.3, I think it's November right now, and then into 2025. You're going to hear, I keep saying this, by the way, has anybody heard from their managers yet? Their CEOs or owners, anything like that? Like, hey, I'm hearing more stuff about this Encompass Web. Is anybody actually hearing that, or am I just making that up for you? Because I do expect it's going to be, if anybody goes to the ICE event next year, I think it's March, it's going to be everywhere. It's going to be everywhere. So Chris says planting the seed. Amy says making it up. I'm making it up. That's fine. Wait for the announcements. Don't get caught flat-footed though. Get ahead on what's going on. There's an admin checklist video I just shot. Hopefully everybody's got the admin checklist already downloaded from the release notes. If you don't have that yet, you can get it. If you don't know where to get it, give me, I think we're posting on Thursday, just as a reminder. Make sure you get it, go through it. It's 19 pages. It's not a big deal. It's not a substitute for not reading the release notes. It's just a recap of things that you have to really make sure you don't forget to do. And one of the more important one, it's not even cliff notes, Chris. It's more like last second instructions that you leave for the babysitter or dog sitter when you leave, and it's not really the full picture. So, yeah, that works for me too. And so that's my whole story for today. It's not a really big piece. Does anyone have any questions? I wasn't really paying attention to chat because I was on my soapbox there for a second. But I'm going to go back to a couple of things that were mentioned here in the community chat. One is from Sean, and he says, I'm finding the need for more custom input forms now as we're heading into enhanced conditions. We have several custom print forms that are Word documents that my team previews. I want to talk about this. And so when you go to New Doc Viewer, Sean, I'm sure you already know this and everybody knows this, but when you go to New Doc Viewer, you lose the ability to preview in Word because it's server-side PDF emulation, which means when you do a preview, it comes up as a PDF. Please, please, please do the work so that wherever your team is modifying in Word doc, which is a terrible policy, truthfully, it's a terrible policy, because Lord knows what they're typing in there. Now you might say it's a great policy because there's spell check. Okay, that's certainly one angle. My attitude is when they save and send that, you have zero documentation of what they saved and sent. Now you might say, but Larry, they put it in the E folder, to which I say, yeah, audit the E folder for what they typed in there. Again, you might say it doesn't matter. I'm going to tell you that if you're going to move forward in Encompass, you're going to move to New Doc Viewer because you're going to want to make sure that you not only can enjoy the automated retrieval of your disclosures. If you don't have that yet and you do have the New Doc Viewer and you're interested in that, open up a case with ICE. But then you also need to look at what's available with the web, and enhanced conditions are part of the process. You can use Encompass Web without enhanced conditions. You just can't see the conditions of the file on the web. So it's kind of broken in terms of what that looks like. So that's a call out. Candace says we're slowly moving that way, meaning more towards Doc Viewer. Doc Viewer was first, then enhanced conditions. Now we have some workflow tasks, also switching to EPC services as they become available. Yeah, EPC is an ongoing conversation also, right? Not every vendor has EPC enabled. Some vendors have EPC enabled, but not for all of their services. Some services are only able to kind of do half the thing that they would want to do because they're still getting their integration approved. So that kind of a thing. I don't see any other questions coming up. Oh, Amy says, how many custom fields is too many? Oh, that was back when I said they had 5,000. It's not the custom fields, Amy. It's the custom field calcs. Duh, that's on the admin test. You know that. Anyway, so Sean continues, we have a few custom forms that have matching custom print forms that we worked for years, undisclosed debt acknowledgement. It's nice because we can include it with disclosures. And yeah, so, you know, it's one of those things where I've seen companies that have this problem that Sean's describing with regards to custom input forms doing a preview. And again, it's a hard solve because your users are used to hitting preview and then typing. And when I say to the teams, type in the input form and then print, not only do you, you're actually able to include that document in the disclosure package with an e-signature or initial, or an e-signature initial sticker, you know, the initial sticker and the signature sticker. You can do that natively. A lot of times with this problem here where you're sending out custom print forms with explanation letters, your company then has to have separate licenses for Foxit or Adobe or whatever to get it to be signed individually, because you can't preview unless you preview then save. It's a weird kind of setup. So be mindful, right? I'm sure Sean knows about this, but for everybody else that may not think about those things. Sarah goes on to say, we were caught off guard with some of the EBS web calculations behaving differently than the smart engine. I don't know what EBS is. Sorry, I'm being stupid right now. I'm going to continue though. When our EPC services, when our EPC service calls the web calc engine, they don't run the same such a mess. Sarah, it sounds like you got really something interesting to talk about. I'd love to learn more. The ICE Peeler called it Web Calcs EBS. Encompass Ballistic System. I have no idea what EBS is. EDS, like Echo Dog Sierra? Like EDS, it's Encompass Doc Solutions, but EBS? I don't know. Anybody know what EBS is? Kevin asks, where did I miss setting up the MERS EPC? Please use new one when going to MERS XML registration. So if you're talking about the automated MERS registration, Kevin, is that what you're thinking of? Because automated MERS registration is on the docket through service. Now, if MERS's EPC integration is not launched yet, you know, but I thought somebody was actually leveraging the EPC successfully on MERS registration. I don't know though. I could be totally making that crap up. So ask the community. I think someone was doing it. I just don't know if they're on this call today. The part that's valuable in this, by the way, with the MERS is also the TOS-TOB, transfer of service, transfer of beneficiary, and that goes into, wow, that was really friggin' loud. Sorry, gang. And let's go ahead and mute the speakers so that doesn't happen again. I gotta remember to do that. All right, so Sarah continues, the is empty for date fields work. Oh, the code is different. Yes. Thank you, Sarah, for pointing this out. I do go through this in the Web Essentials course. I would thoroughly encourage, if you're writing rules in Workflow Engine, that you use the condition editor, because the syntax for web, for the engine, for the workflow engine, is slightly different than the syntax for VB in desktop. Sarah, that's what you're talking about. So please use the condition editor until you get comfortable with the syntax. There are many differences, specifically with regards to the is empty or in those kinds of things. So yeah, like is date, right? You would expect is date, not is date, and it's just is empty kind of a thing. So it's a weird way to think. So make sure that you're checking that. Sarah says it was tripling our smart client rules. Well, yeah. It's tripping your smart client rules. Yeah, I could see that. Brian says, what's the syntax basis? Is there documentation on that? No, there's not, Brian. That would be crazy. So it is definitely something you want to use a condition editor. And where Candace saying is try, I would say you don't have to try. When you come into, I'll share screen one last time here as we're leaving. When you come into share, when you come into process automation workflow rules, you can go into a new rule here and you can see the conditions. Use the query builder, please. And so if we use something like 3142 as an example, like that's a date field, right? And you would say here, you apply that, and you'd say is empty, right? Hit apply that, use is empty. So this is reliable. Using the query builder until you get used to the syntax is reliable. Also, what's important on here is when you get into some other, if you're getting into other outputs that you're using field identifiers, we're using curly brackets in here, not square brackets. And so that was important. Candace was just making sure that everybody knows she was talking about desktop rules in her chat, not to be confused with web rules. Thank you, Candace. And Sarah's saying ICE had us change to is after 111 instead. Yeah, I would just encourage you to use the query builder. I think you'll be okay. But if you find that it's not working, Sarah, we'd love to hear from you in the community, okay? Pretty please. Gang, that's the end of today. I really appreciate everybody coming. And, you know, these are going to come on. We're going to release our August schedule soon. And I think I'm going to be doing a lot more revisiting in August for enhanced conditions, input form builder, probably task-based workflows, but then also some methodologies in terms of things that we've been finding successful in terms of leveraging Encompass Web for our clients, and maybe you can use some of that to be helpful for your company. So you guys have a great rest of your day. Thanks as always for coming, and we'll catch you next week at the latest. See you on the community, gang. See you now. Bye-bye.